Hello, this is Chris Latham, Senior Content Strategist at Stephens Inc. A once-in-a-generation investment cycle is on the verge of expanding, in tandem with recent developments in federal infrastructure legislation. The US government is poised to allocate approximately $1.2 trillion for investment in critical infrastructure, including broadband, water, transportation, and power projects. Stephens Investment Banking is working with clients across power and industrial technology, as well as infrastructure services, to capitalize on these developments. Now, let's get exclusive insights directly from three of our senior bankers, Joe Mowry, Ross Rucker, and Dan Parfit. Joe, can you start us off by explaining how the US electric grid factors into all of this?
Happy to do that, Chris. We've got a major transformation with the electric grid. First of all, aging infrastructure is driving a tremendous amount of maintenance expense. I think over the last 10 years, you've seen it go from somewhere around $75 billion in 2010 to $135 billion in 2020. So well over $1 trillion for that 10-year time frame. And that pace of CapEx is only going to continue to increase as you've got a lot of the grid that's still in need of major work. Next, we have challenges that also exist from the growth of renewables and electric vehicles as the industry prepares to not only refurbish the existing grid, but also it needs to modernize and become more capable and resilient to deal with those things. Distributed energy resources are experiencing a lot of growth because the economic value proposition is much better than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. The grid simply can't handle this in many places. And then you have concerns around weather and storm damage that's requiring the grid to be much more resilient. And I think a great example of that is Hurricane Ida. I mean, that's a real-time example of a reason to make our grid more resilient.
Thanks, Joe. Ross, can you dive deeper on what these primary drivers might mean for issuers and consolidators in relation to the electric grid?
Sure, Chris. The combination of these elements present unprecedented challenges for grid operators, which therefore present unprecedented requirements for grid investment. The existing electric grid was not designed to handle these dynamic elements. In order to keep up, utilities must invest in new software and hardware, from sensing and control solutions to data and analytics. These themes will continue to drive record spend on traditional utility hardware, as well as remote renewables projects that must be tied to the grid. For over 2 decades, our team at Stephens has focused on grid transformation, dating back to our support of the migration of electromechanical meters to solid-state digital meters. Our coverage has since evolved to include hardware, software, and services supporting the grid. During the past decade, we have advised on more than $8.6 billion worth of M&A and capital markets transactions in the power and industrial technology sector.
Dan, what's the connection between the power and industrial technology aspect of this and the communications aspect of infrastructure services where you specialize?
Chris, the link is the convergence of critical infrastructure end markets around resiliency and connectivity. We're in the early innings of a capital investment cycle around critical infrastructure. This has led to a significant wave of M&A activity around the contractor universe, which is highly fragmented. Investors are seeking platforms that have recurring or reoccurring revenue flows from repair, maintenance, and upgrade services. The capabilities of the electrical power and communication contractor universes align, both underground critical infrastructure, whether that's distribution lines or fiber optics, both provide aerial services, whether that's the replacement of power lines or small cell or tower modifications for macro cell towers. The need for these services is only going to accelerate with the passage of the infrastructure bill. $65 billion will be allocated to broadband connectivity, $73 billion will be allocated to power infrastructure. In addition, wireless and fiber carriers will be investing hundreds of billions of dollars over the next several years as they look to upgrade their networks. This will help all industries, including the electrical power industry, as it will have more reliability and more accurate and timely data from the grid. In addition, consumers will benefit from faster download speeds and more robust capabilities across a nationwide footprint. Stevens has been at the forefront of the communications and infrastructure services space for over a decade, with over $25 billion of transaction volume over that period of time.
Joe, Ross, and Dan, this has been a highly informative conversation. Thank you all for sharing your insights.